Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sacred Symbols Plus, you're actually twice a week now, Sacred Symbols supplement here on patreon.com/laststandmedia. This is episode 118. For this episode, I'm your host, Dustin, and here with me, I have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, fellow content creator, Jimmy Champane. What's up?
How's it going? I'm acting like we weren't just talking for like 20 minutes like before that.
I know, yeah.
Hello, I'm happy to
We
be
had
here.
an extended pre-show talk about all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is exciting, Jimmy, just because you and I, I don't know, how long have we been friends now?
Like a little over a year, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know how we even gotten, you know what? I think it was because we ended up following each other, and then did it start around Hunt Showdown?
Yeah, you like saw me playing it on Steam, and then you were like, hey, I want to play this. And then we just played it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we played Call of Duty, and then we played Destiny. We like evolved.
Right. It evolved.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be, when this episode comes out, this is coming out on Saturday, and the Last Stand live event, An Evening with Last Stand, will be happening, and you're going to be there. So we'll meet in person for the first time. Very cool. Anyway, I'm getting too much in the weeds on this, but the reason we're doing this episode is because Jimmy was featured in a video today. We're recording this on Monday, so it'll be not quite as fresh by the time this episode comes out, but still very relevant. You were on a video that has been making the news rounds about this new PlayStation 5 revision. So for the audience, first of all, just to give context of like why you're in this video, why don't we go through that and then explain like what the big deal is with this PS5 revision?
Okay. Sounds good. Wait, what's the questions?
So first of all, like this video, okay, so I'll set the stage a little bit. This video was on Austin Evans' channel, right, which is a channel you have worked with and still work with, but you also host your own channel, PSReady. So, which we're going to talk all about PSReady in a little bit, right. But just to start off with, the framing of this episode about the PS5 revision, what's going on with this video?
Okay, so Austin, my boss, but not really anymore. He's still my boss. He pays me, but he helped me get PSReady going.
That's important.
So he was like, "Yo, I got this new PlayStation 5 coming overnight from Japan, and we should look at it in a video." And I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome," because like literally the day before I posted a news video on PSReady where I was like, oh, it'd be so sick if we could like tear this thing open. If anyone in Australia or Japan has one and you want to take it apart, let me know. And then like 20 minutes after that, Austin was like, hey, I got this one coming. We'll tear it apart in a video. And I was like, whoa, cool. Because I've worked at Austin's place for probably like 4 years now. And I've been like shown up in videos, but I've never gotten to be like a part of a video. So that was really cool just on its own. And so we tore it down, and the motherboard immediately we noticed has a much smaller heatsink on it that's using a lot less copper. And I guess the new heatsink is aluminum, which is like a fine metal, I guess, for heatsinks. Like, I'm not the techno wizard here. Like, if you watch the video, I'm like constantly just doing what Austin tells me, and then when we get to the part that I do know about, I can kind of talk about it. But yeah, it was really interesting to see how different it was, because 300 grams is like half a pound ish, and we were like, this could either be like, a critical component is different, or they could have just used a lot less metal in the chassis, and it turned out to be a critical component, which obviously made a lot better of a video. So that was it's kind of all came together. Austin took the edit, which is crazy because he just had a baby. We were like, Austin, are you sure you can take this edit? He was like, yeah, man, I got this edit. And he got it up like so fast. It was great. It was so much fun. It was a good day of work all around.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think why this video, let's see, this was uploaded August 28th, and you're looking at 1.2 million views on it,
That's
which is,
crazy.
I mean, that's pretty good for Austin. I mean, I know Austin is like has a huge channel, but is 1.2 like more than normal for him, or is that like
Uh,
average?
like it's not out of the norm for him to have 1.2 million views. It's how fast I think we got 1.2 million views on that is the
Right.
surprising, I not really surprising, the crazy thing. And the PS Ready video is also doing well. I ran back and did a video to go up at the same time to synergize with it, and
Right.
that one's sitting at around, like a cool 60,000 views, so not too shabby. Nowhere
Very
close to
nice.
1.1 million, but that's a high ranking video for us, so I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, but
Dude,
we were worried like it was going to be a short video, and then that's why we kind of have different sections in it. And I think the runtime came out good and solid video.
right. Well, I think the most interesting thing is just that you guys were really the first ones to the punch because we knew that there was going to be this PS5 revision. We had heard about this, like there's a new screw in it, and that it was lighter.
Right.
And
The screw
so,
is crazy. Everyone's freaking out about the screw.
right. So wait, what is going on with the screw?
So it's actually like it's a new stand too. They didn't change
Oh,
most of the stand, like 99% of it is the same, but there's a new deeper hole in the stand, and the screw
oh,
has a like rubber coating around it, so you can unscrew it with your fingers instead of using a screwdriver.
oh,
So
that
it's
is
actually a
nice.
good quality of life change. And also the Wi-Fi module, we didn't test it or anything, but we think that's different too, where they were having issues with IPv6 connections, and we think this new Wi-Fi chip in there fixes that. So that's two positives that come along with this PS5, which is good. I think we got to give credit where it's
Right.
due.
So after this video comes out, I mean, I remember seeing this over the weekend. It was kind of like on Sunday is when you started to see this pop up. That it was like on Twitter that it became, ammunition
Right, the fanboys.
for the console warriors. Did you? So that was like, I'm sure that when you saw those popping up, you was like, oh no, like here, not oh no, but
I was
like,
like,
I mean, that's
whoa,
good.
this is
Yeah.
crazy. Because like it's happened a few times, but with videos that I'm not in, but videos I worked a lot on. Like when Austin revealed the Series X, I was like doing a lot of work on that type of stuff over there because I'm the big gamer in the office. And so it was kind of like, even though nobody actually shouted me out in any way, it was nice that I was in literally every thumbnail that people used for their articles and shit, which is
Right.
hilarious. But yeah, I mean, like the video did well. We're pretty confident in like the information we had in it. I trust Austin completely with knowing about that, because like pretty much every laptop we've ever had come in, there's a thermal section where he like digs deep into the thermal data with that. People are talking down on his thermal camera that he uses with his phone, but it's not like he's using his iPhone as a thermal camera. That is a separate module that you put on your phone, and it is a thermal camera that has an app on the phone. So it's like it is a real deal thermal camera. So yeah, I don't know. I trust what he had to say and all that.
Well, let's get into that, Jimmy, just because that's kind of the big question that a lot of people have right now is that you had mentioned about like, okay, we knew the weight was lower.
Right.
Is it going to be the chassis or a main component? And so it turns out it is. I'm looking at the picture now, and I recommend everyone going and checking out this video to see it. I mean, we can describe it as best as we can here on audio, but these are like a significantly different size when it
Yeah.
comes to these heatsink. And what's so interesting to me, at least, is that before the PS5 came out, we were getting rumors and different stuff of people talking about its more bespoke cooling system and how Sony was having to put this really big cooler that was going to cost them a lot more money to put in the system. And people were kind of thought this was intriguing because you have this console that needs this giant heat sink, something that's more expensive in order to cool it. I don't know. Maybe people feel like they were getting something more powerful
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe not. I don't know. But what's interesting now is seeing that this new revision, which is less than a year after launch, has an extremely reduced heatsink, but the question I think that a lot of people are bringing up, and what this slight controversy or whatever you want to call it, is that you guys found in the video that this new PS5 is running 3 to 5 degrees Celsius hotter than the previous one when you look at the exterior, the outtake
Yeah,
fan with through
right.
that thermal camera. So to me, again, I'm know a lot about hardware stuff, but like I would imagine that if something is consistently running hotter, um, that would theoretically reduce the lifespan of something. Like, sure, this PS5, it's not going to run any differently. It's not going to throttle. At least you'd hope not.
Right.
If it starts to get too hot, the fans, I would assume, would kick up more. But you have to imagine that, to me, running hotter like that is like not horrible, but not positive. So
Right.
you kind of mentioned what Austin's take is, and I'm curious about his and what your take was on, like, you know, running hotter. Like, is this something that people should be concerned about? Like, should people be avoiding these new units if possible?
So like my thought on it is, okay, so I think we were pretty clear on this in the video, and obviously fanboys blew it out of proportion, but it's not that this thing is like, suddenly a nuclear bomb, right? It's not going to like blow up in your TV cabinet. The issues really come down to the fact that Sony made a major change to the way the system is cooled after, before it came out, we had heard it was having heating issues, which is like directly why it's so big, why it has such a massive fan, why it needed such a big heatsink, like X, Y, and Z. And also, we didn't point out that the Series X runs hotter all the time, but the way the Series X cools itself is just better. I don't know why. That's where I get lost with like the differences between them. But the problem is that Sony just didn't say anything, and that the only reason we know that there is a different PS5 at all, is other than the model number being on the box, is that we got this information from like a filing in Japan, right? So they're making a fairly major change to the way the console is constructed that has a real world, like, identifiable what's the word, like, real world identifiable noticeable difference in the heat that's being outputted out the back of the console. So like, I just feel like from the consumer angle, we should have heard about that beforehand and had some reassurance from Sony as to why they were changing it and why they felt like this change was warranted and adequate. I know Nintendo got the same sort of pushback from people when they released the red box Switch. And to be fair, they made the box different, and they were, kind of upfront about making, major changes to the internal hardware, which they only did because there was a hack that couldn't be stopped from a software level on launch switches. But still, they were very vague about it. They were kind of like, yeah, it's a new Switch, but you don't need to be worried if you have the old one and you see the old one in the wild. You should be fine grabbing that. But then it turns out this new one has a much better battery life. So yeah, we're not going to know the effects of this new heatsink until a few years down the line. And I don't think it's bad enough where, like, if you're at the store and you see a PS5, where you need to pull it out and check the model number and be like, oh man, this is the new one, I gotta wait. Like, I think you're gonna be fine. It's just the problems come down to the fact that Sony made this conscious decision to cheap out on the heatsink, and then they didn't tell us about it, and they're just not acknowledging it, because as far as I know, they still haven't said anything, even with all these articles coming out and stuff. And I like that you pointed out it's 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, because every article that wants to be like, oh, it doesn't matter that it runs hotter, they just go with 3. They don't say the range, because like 5 degrees Celsius ends up being around 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like a pretty sizable jump when you're talking about hardware components. Also, it's a home console. A lot of people keep it in their TV cabinets. We know that the PS5 fluctuates in how much power it provides based on what the game being played needs, based on how hot it's running. If you keep it in a TV stand and it's running 10 degrees hotter, you might get a little bit less performance out of it. Like, we don't know. We didn't go that in depth with it, but these are all very fair questions to raise, I think, personally. That's just me.
Sure. And I feel like you guys weren't claiming, like, I mean, the title of the video, I guess maybe is what could trip people up, because it says the new PS5 is worse, which,
worse than what?
I mean,
we don't know.
right.
No, it's worse than the old one.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing, is that I can understand that maybe there's like, is there such a term as like fair bait? It's like,
Yeah,
it's a little baity, but it's not like this new console is gonna catch flames, maybe. Like, you know what I mean?
right.
Like, it's not dishonest.
I think this is the farthest you could get away from clickbait, in my, like, just in my opinion. Like, if I had clicked on this video, obviously I can't know for sure because I wasn't on the outside looking in, but I don't think I'd be too mad because it's like we paid a lot of money to get this PS5 overnighted here. We tore it down and directly compared it to pretty much a brand new launch model digital version. So it's like we kind of did our due diligence there. Like, yeah, we didn't figure out a way to take off the side panel and make sure it was running and like test each individual part, but that's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to show that there's a clear difference between these PS5s, and we should be hearing about that from Sony. If they're going to be selling the same, like a new PS5 to the same consumer group, they should know about that, right? Like, I feel like that's fair for
Right.
like people to know that.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that this type of thing has happened
Oh yeah, with the
before. It's
PS3,
just,
like a ton.
oh, dude, yeah, the PS3, they were like spitting out different models of that. Like, it feels like every week there's like so many PS3s. But I mean, those changes a lot of times with the PS3 were a lot more drastic in that they were like removing different ports or backwards compatibility and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And the
But it
original
even goes,
Xbox too had a lot of different revisions because they were just using
yeah,
PC parts. Sorry to cut you off.
right. And even like I always think of Super Nintendo, which a lot of people, it's not going to matter to 99% of people who have a Super Nintendo, but if you are into dumb stupid CRT stuff like I am, there are certain Super Nintendos that have different components on the inside that have cleaner signals when they get outputted. So there's
I
like
didn't know
more
that.
desirable. Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
specifically the Super Nintendo. There's like it's called one chip. And
Oh,
so they basically completely, I don't know about completely, but they drastically redesigned the internal components to the point where some people, you could make the argument that this one chip Super Nintendo is like different hardware technically than the original. Like, it's that different.
whoa.
Um,
That's really
but
interesting.
yeah, well, what's really cool about that too is that, do you know so there's the regular Super Nintendo, but then the Super Nintendo Mini, I think it's either the Mini,
Y-
the other one that's like the revised
Yeah,
model.
I've seen that.
All of those have the one chip system on the inside.
Ah.
But dude, this is okay. I'm in depth
This
here.
is a good
We've
tangent though.
already we've already passed the barrier, the tangent. Is the the regular Super Nintendo has RGB output, which means you can get like that super clean signal, which is great if you can find a one chip SNES. But the Super Nintendo Mini does not allow RGB input, but it has the one chip. So people install mod chips into the Super Nintendo Mini
My
in
God.
order to get that clean RGB with the one chip.
Yeah. So
So
like with the PS5, I don't think you're gonna have to go get a new heatsink if you
yeah,
get the new model. I think.
right. So here's a question that I had, which I don't think you can answer this. I don't think
Oh, okay.
anybody
Cool. Cool.
can right now. So just, I guess your opinion is that even when PS5 launched, there's been a lot of theories that it's like, okay, this thing's pretty quiet right now, but Sony has already said that they can go and dial up the fans via firmware and stuff like that. So do you think it's possible that in like 3 to 4 years, maybe less, that certain PS5s, maybe particularly these new ones with the smaller heatsink, sound like jet engines again?
I hope not. Honestly, I don't think it'll be that bad, but it really depends on which of the three different fans they're using that you get. Because the one that this new version we got has is basically the same as the one that the like teardown ISIS video they did before the PS5 came
Yeah.
out. Like it's basically the same
Yeah.
as that one. So that's really interesting. And we spun them, I mean, like with our hand, and they were silent. The other fan in the other PS5 we tore down was very similar to that one, but it just had smaller blades. So like I don't think that one's going to be any louder. And the weirder thing about that is we weighed them both and they weighed exactly the same, which like you'd think if the blades were bigger on the newer fan that we got, like it would weigh different, but they weigh the same. So they're basically essentially the same fan as far as I'm concerned. There's apparently this like, oh shit. Sorry Ben. I just kicked my mic over. Okay. There's apparently like this third fan that when they increase the RPM will be inherently louder, but I think that was more of like a like YouTuber driven, fanboy driven controversy, because it's like, yes, theoretically it's going to be louder than the current one, but the current better one is still silent. Like you're dealing with essentially two silent fans. Like the PS5 is very quiet. I think they
Right.
did a good job there. And so is the Xbox.
Dude, the funny thing about the PS5 for me, as far as volume and sound, is that mine is very quiet when there's no disc in. It's like they made the console quiet and the disc drive. Like, dude, seriously. So my TV has this setting where if I turn on the TV and the PS5 is the last input, it automatically turns on the PS5.
Right. Okay. I have that
So
too.
I'll like turn on my TV and then I'll want to watch Netflix or something. So I'll like quickly try to switch over to the Netflix app, but I won't make it in time. And my PS5 will be like,
Yeah,
for a
mine does
second.
that
Like it's
too
just
with Ghost. I mean, like now it doesn't do it. It does it once when I start up the PS5 because I have Ghost on PS4 disc. So it
mm,
has to verify that the disc is in there before it launches the like digital PS5 version it downloaded, and it'll
right.
like rev up. I think the disc drive is the loudest part of that console. So I don't think the fan is
Dude,
a
it's
big
so
problem.
the question that I was wondering is I was like, man, was the PS4 disk drive this loud? And we didn't realize because
The fan
it
was
was like
drowning it
the
out.
fan just completely blew it
The
out.
fan PS4 Pro's disc drive was fucking nuts. It and my launch PS4 was pretty loud too. I don't know. I guess I was just so used to it that it never really bothered me, and my PS4 was always far enough away where, like, if you got close enough, it sounded like something was breaking in it. It's like, whoa, should it be spinning that fast? But I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I think the fans honestly are fine, no matter which one you get,
Right.
and they're easily
Dude,
replaceable. By the way, like you can just swap them out. So if one of them, if you, somehow you got the loud one, you could just order a quieter fan and just pop it right in. It's the
hmm.
easiest component to get to. You just
Do
unscrew the
you
core
void the
screw.
warranty by
No,
doing that?
there was only one sticker that had, like on PlayStation stuff when they have like a sticker that voids the warranty where you'll see the
Right.
PlayStation symbols. There's only one screw that has that, and it's that last screw. Remember when I don't know if you watched the whole video, but in this video with Austin, I'm like, oh, there's another sticker because we couldn't get them apart. There's one last
Right.
screw. That last screw has the sticker over it, and we had the fan out well before that. Like the fan is very simple to get to. You take off the side plate, scratch the shit out of the side of your PS5,
I
guaranteed.
saw that.
And then you unscrew 4 screws and you're good to go. And then it's like a little plug that's on the top most layer, if I'm remembering right.
Right.
But I remember it being very
Yeah,
easy.
I'm looking at it now. And it looks like it would be pretty easy to swap out. It's funny thinking about they made the fan easier to get out and clean or whatever,
Yeah,
which it's funny because the problem with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro wasn't even the fan, to my understanding. I mean, some people had luck like cleaning it out and
I
then that
did
would make it
with
silent.
my Pro.
Dude, I deep cleaned my PS4 Pro because I just like was able to. I didn't care about voiding the warranty. The warranty was up,
Yeah, right.
so I deep cleaned it and it did nothing. So in my understanding, the problem with a lot of PS4 Pros is that the thermal paste. There's like
Oh.
it's either not enough of it or it's like all gunked up or
Oh, so
whatever.
like same
And the
problem as
people,
the 360.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's so funny how that works out. I just remember playing was it Red Dead Redemption 2? It was like constantly sounded like there was like a jetliner flying above Arthur Morgan, like constantly. It just never went away.
I
Ever.
love those TikToks where they like underlay sounds of like an actual jet engine revving up for the
Yeah.
PS4, like played Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4 and shit. It's so funny.
Yeah. Dude, it's I mean, I feel like that's gonna be one of the hallmark things of the PS4 generation is just how loud it was. Which I had the VCR Xbox One and then I had the Xbox One S. I never had the X, but none of those were ever loud for me at least. I can't
Yeah.
remember though
I started with the
if
S. I got the 1S. I did that infamous Wario 64 Target deal where you could like buy Rock Band 4 and 2 other games and return it, and it would take the price off of the Xbox. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. I got an Xbox and the Master Chief Collection. Dope. And then I got to preview Gears 5, and they sent me the like Gears Special Xbox after that. And
Whoa.
yeah, the Xbox One X. I was like, this thing's sweet. So I used that for a year. And that thing was, they were both really quiet. I like both those consoles a lot. They both are like, Microsoft's design team, I think, does a really good job with the actual consoles themselves. I was holding a Series S the other day, and I was like, this thing, the speaker aspect of it is weird, like how it's got that black fan port, but it's very small and
Right.
just like nice.
Yeah, I have actually yet to see one in person, I
They're
think. Now,
tiny.
well, you know what? I've seen one at like a stand in Best Buy, but I've never held one. It's different.
I can't believe how much smaller it is than the Xbox One, but it's about, I guess, about as powerful as the One X, maybe a little more. I don't know. The PS5 also looks a lot better with dark plates on it. We got a couple of those from D Brand, and I put them on, and it looks a lot better. It's still massive, but that console looks
Right.
better black to me.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Sony to release some of their own. Like it
Seems like
seems
a
obvious for
no-brainer.
them to do that. But so, Jimmy, while I have you here, I mean, I feel like we've kind of covered this heat sink thing pretty extensive. I mean,
Conspiracy.
the to put it, to conclude things, I guess, is that we'll have to wait and see for people to do like thorough testing. Like my gut tells me that it sounds like Sony was trying to figure out ways to reduce the price of the console.
Yeah.
And you have to imagine that these things go through vigorous testing in order to be like, yeah, we can do this more efficiently. It's just going to run a little hotter and, exhaust a little hotter. But like, again, there's still that question about like longevity. That's the thing that always comes up to me is that it's like, sure, this will probably, I'm in my mind, I'm positive, but I don't know. You never know with Sony.
I'm positive
That
too, but yeah, you're right. You never know with Sony. That's the problem. They've had issues with everything past the PS2, right? Like PS3 yellow light of death, PS4 launch had major issues with heat. My PS4 Pro's disk drive broke, which sucked. I had it for like just over a year and the disk drive broke. And I was like, why? Like why? And then now we've got this PS5 that had tons of rumors about it having issues with heat, and then they reduce the cost. It's because they have to use less copper with this new one, because copper, I guess, skyrocketed in price. So they used this smaller heatsink and replaced a lot of the copper with aluminum, which objectively on their part, I think is a smart move from a business standpoint. And I don't think we're going to know how big of a difference 5 degrees is going to make until we just let people get these things in their hands. And then, like, I don't know, we just got to wait it out.
Right. So, Jimmy, while I have you here,
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about let's talk other PS5 hardware stuff. And I guess we can kind of broach two topics with this, because your main thing, your career right now
Yeah.
is pretty fresh in that you are the host of a YouTube channel called PSReady that we mentioned earlier, which is a YouTube channel that is mostly focused around PlayStation hardware, and you also do like some news videos
Yeah,
in there
it's
as
like
well.
mostly like PlayStation news with a focus on hardware. Like those are usually our headlining video topics, or like hardware oriented stuff, and then I'll throw in, what games I'm playing, what PS Plus stuff's coming out, the stuff that I would care about if I was watching the channel, basically.
Right. You always have I think what's so cool about your channel is that there's like topics and interesting things covered that I would never think of. Like just like some of these like wacky like controller stuff. Like, okay, I haven't watched this video. I'm just looking at it right now. Invisible PS5 controller. And it's about this clear shell that you can, I don't know, is this like a modded
Yeah,
controller or
this
something that
guy reached out to us. His name's Cody. He lives in, I think, Tennessee, and he's like obsessed with LEDs. And so he made this custom PS5. He like was really adamant about sending it to us. I was like, I can use pictures of it because that's like expensive. And he was like, no, man, I'm gonna send it to you. I was like, all right. So he sends me his controller. He installed back pedals on it, which I love the LEDs. I think they're cool. The back panels are the most important aspect in my opinion because they're so awesome. Like I was like, who needs these?
Right.
And then now that I have them, I'm like, I need these. But
Oh, dude, they're great.
he did a great job. He did it all himself. It's a clear skin for the controller, like a clear shell, and then he just oriented the LEDs in a really cool way. And there's a clear touchpad on it, and there's a copper square on the top left of the touchpad, and it's capacitive. So if you touch the copper square, that's what changes the LEDs. And it's like, whoa, that's
Whoa.
really smart for just like, I don't know, I couldn't do that. I don't think without heavily researching it. So it's the invisible PS5 controller. And then because of that video, this site Hex Gaming reached out and they were like, well, we're making a controller with back paddles. It's like a pro controller. You want to try that out? We're like, sure. So I customized that. And that controller, I like it. I think it's premium, but I think they're like heavily overcharging for it. They're charging like somewhere close to $300 just to get back paddles. It's like,
Right.
little much there. And I guess they're painting it, but still, I mean, I'd rather just wait for Sony to copy Design Lab or come out with some cooler special edition dual senses.
It's so, dude, the whole backpedal thing is so disappointing to me
Yeah.
because I actually have for the video listeners, I have my the attachment that they
It's
did
so
for
good.
the DualShock. And dude, well, I bought it initially because I was thinking I'm doing all these Dark Souls streams and I know that they're helpful so you can run without taking your hands off the
Oh,
sticks.
okay. That makes
And
sense.
so I bought it for that and I was like, man, this thing is actually really awesome. I like love this. And I am frustrated that Sony doesn't have a solution
Yeah.
for DualSense.
It's
Don't you think that's kind of odd?
I feel like they could just make it. Like they know how to do it for the DualShock 4, just like alter it in some way so that it connects to the DualSense. It's so annoying. I use it in Destiny with jump and reload. So then yeah, I never have to take my thumbs off the sticks. Just when I
Right.
switch weapons, really. But yeah.
It was such a weird experiment for them to do that so late in the PS4
So late.
generation too. Like I remember actually when they announced it, we were thinking it was before they showed the DualSense when they announced it because we were thinking, maybe they're doing this because the next controller is going to just have these
Yeah, I
built
remember you guys
in.
talking about that.
Yeah, and
Which
then it
is
was
smart.
just
That was a
nothing.
good prediction.
Yeah. So PSReady, really cool channel that just dives into, I mean, a lot of awesome stuff. Like you said, news. I personally really love these videos that highlight just like the weird and interesting hardware stuff about PlayStation. But while we're on the topic of hardware, I was thinking, a lot of people ask us on Sacred Symbols, will Sony do PS5 Pro? When will they do the slim model? And so I just kind of want to see what your take was on some of this hardware stuff. Like, what do you think Sony's next move is with PlayStation hardware?
I think they'd be crazy not to do a slim and pro at the same time in like what, like 2 years. Like they already introduced the precedent. I don't think it's awesome that they've found a way to like iPhoneize the PS5 and the Xbox, right? Like that's kind of scummy because you're always going to feel like you need the newest one, and they can make a console generation as long as they want it to be. And then eventually you start seeing games that only run on the pro, like Jedi Fallen Order. You essentially needed a pro console, or Control, you needed a pro console. That got really annoying by the end of the generation. But from a monetary standpoint, I feel like, yeah, they're crazy not to. I feel like the Series X or the One X and the PS4 Pro both performed well, uh, to the point where Sony's taking the PS4 Pro off the market, which shows you that
Yeah.
like people would probably settle for it if they were having a lot of trouble getting a PS5, and it'd probably be fine for the meantime. But yeah, I feel like we'll probably see one in a couple years. We already know that they're revising the PS5 again very soon. Like they've been filing patents for it for a while now. Now, whether that's going to be a slim, I don't know. I feel like it could be more like a PS3 style thing where it's more internal changes that we don't really notice. But it's still interesting that they're already toiling away on changing this thing that's not even a year old.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure that as soon as like they finalize the plans for a console, it's like, okay, now we're laying the groundwork
Yeah.
for what's next. I'm sure that PS5 was a little different in that they're looking at ways that they can make it cheaper as quickly as possible, since
Yeah.
apparently, I mean, I don't know if we knew the exact numbers, but the rumor was that they were taking a loss on PS5 at launch,
Yeah, and I
and
guess
now
they
they
just
are.
started, not but only with the disc one, they're making money on it, I guess? I don't understand that.
That would make sense to me, just because the disk drive does not cost $100, like,
There's
at
no way.
all. So the point with the $400 PS5 is that they'll
Oh,
make
you're
the
right.
money up
Yeah.
on digital purchases.
In
Yeah.
my mind, they cost the same. I don't know why, but they don't. But yeah,
Dude, I always forget that
yeah.
that the digital one's 400.
Yeah, that's really
It's a
interesting.
it's a big
I mean,
difference.
yeah, they're gonna be making a little bit back on the digital now that it's lighter because they pay a lot by weight to ship it, I know. So, now that it's over half a pound lighter per console, that's gonna add up quick, like,
Right.
to a real monetary value for them. So that's good for them.
Yeah. The thing about the PS5 Pro, or whatever you want to call it, in the revision, I feel like I've heard some people say, like, yeah, I'm going to hold off until they do a Pro or they do a Slim. And I'm like, well, if you're not that intrigued by the games or the upgrades at all, then that's cool. But I just feel like it's probably still, first of all, going to be a few years out. Like, I wouldn't expect. I'm trying to think. PS4 came out in 2014, and the PS4
Yeah, when did the Pro
Pro
come out? Probably 16, 17.
2016.
It's quick. That's really
Wow,
quick.
that's way quicker than I thought.
Yeah, I remember I got it right when I moved to LA. So yeah, that timing lines up.
Well, maybe hold on. Oh, dude, I was totally off. Wow, my PlayStation cred is not showing. The PS4 release date was 2013, November
Oh,
2013.
okay. I
So
just
it's
figured you
3
meant.
years later, not 2.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So 3 years. Still so quick. Yeah, that
So it
also
would still
lines
be
up.
another 2 years before we would maybe see a PS5 Pro if they decide to do
Yeah,
it again.
that timing seems reasonable to me. Also, like, I'll get it. Like, I don't know. I want new tech. I like new tech. I have a Steam Deck on pre-order. Got an Oculus Quest 2 sitting over there. I like having this
Yeah.
thing. It's just interesting to me to mess around with. But yeah, I'll definitely check it out, whatever it is. I hope they announce it sooner rather than later because that's a lot of videos I can make, you know?
Right. Yeah, well, I would expect that it wouldn't. I mean, let's if we take the same timeline of 3 years,
Yeah.
and so wouldn't it be until 2023 then, right?
Yeah,
That if
that makes
again, if they
sense.
do the same timeline, I feel like, though, it might be if they do it again, uh, it would maybe they would want to wait a little longer, just because they're having, there's this console is so in demand, and it might feel, if let's say they're supply constrained for anywhere. I mean, at this point, who knows? It's been a year and it's still supply constrained.
Right.
There's no signs of it dying down. If it's, let's say it's 2 years, and then the people finally are able to start buying them 2 years in, and then a year later they're like, hey, we've got this better one. That might be bad optics, but
I just
it's hard to
I
say.
think Sony understands that like they have to push it very far to get people mad enough to stop buying PlayStations. I think at this point, like, I
Yeah.
feel like they're very confident in their ability to sell PlayStations, which is why they're okay making major hardware changes and not saying anything about it. So yeah, like they'll catch a little blowback for it. I remember they caught blowback for the PS4 Pro when that came out, and then people just kind of got over it once they had the console in their hands. Like, people have short memories. A lot of the people who are complaining about scalpers stop complaining about scalpers when they actually get a PS5. You know, like,
Right.
whatever.
Oh yeah. It's only, I mean, this happens to everybody with and I've done this where it's like, this is a very bad problem because it's happening to me.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then once it's not happening to me, it's like, well, you just kind of forget. And that makes sense. It's like you're concerned about what you actively want. But I mean, yeah, not to say that, like, it's not a problem, like this, either the scalping situation or the inability to get a console. But this is something we've touched on with Sacred Symbols over and over. It's like, they've got more consoles out in this time frame than they did with PlayStation 4
Yeah.
during a pandemic.
It's nuts
Like,
how popular it is. It's insane, especially with like how few native games there are coming to it at this point. It's just nuts how big of a rush people are in to get it. It's crazy. Like I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima on it. It's a year-old
right.
game.
Dude, and it looks so good. That's the crazy
Yeah, that
part.
game looks incredible.
Which I mean, the update they did initially was good, and this the director's cut is also good. But so something that I just wanted to ask you about that I was thinking about now with this PS4, like the theoretical PS5 Pro,
Okay.
is like part of me not like obviously it can get better. Like you can have pure native 4K at 60 to 120.
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering if that's like what is the next step? Like if they did a PS5 Pro, what would be the selling point? Like this one plays your games at 4K, uh, for native 4K 60,
Yep.
which already a lot of games are doing, but you could say like without upscaling or whatever.
Right. No checkerboarding.
I'm wondering, could 120 FPS be the next main frontier? We've already seen so many people interested.
Yeah.
What do you? I don't know. What are your thoughts on like what could be the next goalpost?
So I feel like the first big change will be that it'll probably be bigger than whatever slim model comes out, but it'll definitely be smaller than the current PS5. I bet they'll I had a whole list ready to go. But yeah, I guess I feel like they'll do not checkerboarding 4K, just like native
Right,
4K 60,
native.
checkerboarding for 120. That's an easy slam dunk. More storage space on the SSD, like they'll call it the Pro and make it like a terabyte or maybe 2 terabytes. That'd be great. I listened to this podcasty type thing that it was like Alana Pierce, Skilla, Jake Baldino, and Young Yeah, and they were talking about Dying Light 2 and how games in the future are going to be more akin to, or more, they're going to want to tell the story within the game instead of cutting to cutscenes. Like it all tied into this talk that Ken Levine did where he feels like BioShock's great, right? But all he did was remake Half-Life and just tell a different story with it. Like he's like, we're just remaking Half-Life 2 over and over again. I want to do something different. So like Dying Light 2, for example, when you make big decisions in the game, the whole map is going to change because they're building it up in a specific way where that's easy to do. So I feel like that lends itself completely to the whole SSD equation. And you're going to need more storage. You're going to need even faster read write speeds. Like you can get a WD Black with a heatsink. Okay, everyone, with a heatsink that reads and writes faster than the onboard PS5 SSD, and it totally takes advantage of that. Like when I was moving games back and forth between it, they would transfer to the new drive I put in like 2 or 3 seconds, and it would take like 10 to 20 on the native drive that's in the console. And that thing's not even a year old. So like faster SSD,
Yeah.
bigger SSD, smaller console, maybe better battery life on the controller. That'd be a good advertised feature. That's really all I can think of though. Like it has to be more of just like an iPhone revision.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the interesting thing about, I guess, thinking back on the PS4 generation is that out the gate, I remember obviously there was a significant ish jump between PS3 and PS4
Oh yeah.
and 360 and Xbox One, but it's nowhere near the jump between PS4 and PS5 in my opinion. Like the main like crutch, or not crutch, but the issue with the PS5, or I'm getting my 4s and 5s mixed
It's
up.
a lot of numbers.
The main issue with the PS4 was that its CPU was so limited, which caused so many games to be at that 30 FPS. And some people I've heard say like, oh, the reason there was the mid-cycle refresh on that generation was just because games simply couldn't keep up.
Which makes sense based on what we saw at the end of the life cycle, right? Like control
right.
and stuff.
But even then, like the PS4 Pro, I remember when I got it thinking, this thing is cool. I like 4K. But it's only like half 4K, right? Because it's not doing anything native.
Right.
And some of the upscaling is better than others. But in the end, it's still not able to play games at higher frame rates. It's still suffers from some of like games having a lot of frame rate drops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it was partially just because they were tied in order for that compatibility, that they had to keep games like the CPU. I don't think even really changed that much
No, I don't think it did
between
either.
PS4 and PS4 Pro, right?
Yeah. I remember it was just it started out right where when the One X came out, it was like, oh, I could play Far Cry 5 at 60 FPS. This is dope. And then immediately after that, it felt like things just fell off a cliff. And it was like, yeah, we can run games at 30 frames per second at 1080p and they won't hitch at all or anything like that. And I remember when I just got so frustrated with the One X when Jedi Fallen Order came out. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get this. This is a third person action game. There's no reason to play this on PC. I want to play with a controller. I boot it up and it's struggling to hit 30 frames per second. And then I have to play it in performance mode and the frame rate jumps all over the place to the point where it's like giving me motion sickness. I was like, oh my God, this is just bad. So I really felt the need for a new console much more this time around. Like I was very excited between the PS3 and PS4, but I distinctly remember going back and playing Dark Souls 2 on my PS3 when that came out and having a great time with it, right? Like it was easy to go back then.
Right. Dude, that is a relic. I'm glad you brought that up of the Pro consoles and the One X was this variable frame
Oh my
rate
God, it's the
that
worst.
so many developers put in. It's like, yeah, we can't make it run 60. The CPU is too slow, but we'll give you this variable frame rate feature. And I remember in a couple instances, I was like, oh, this is nice, kind of, but and then you start playing and you're like, no, this is worse. Like this is worse than 30 FPS because it's just all over the place. Like
They'd say they're targeting
so
60,
inconsistent.
and then that would mean it would jump from anywhere from 30 to 60, just completely
Right.
at random, depending on the game.
Yeah.
So weird.
So, dude, and I think what's so exciting to me about this new generation of consoles, and I know that you care about this too, and I'd love to get into this for a little bit, is that it really feels like 60 FPS is becoming the new, or becoming the standard once again, we should say. Not that it was ever like the pure standard, but I feel like in the PS2 era, we got a lot more 60 FPS or games targeting. And then when we got to 360, PS3, PS4, it kind of became more of a target 30. There was that, a blog post, I believe, from Insomniac saying that like our games going forward are going to be 30 FPS. And people will, at least in the console space in particular, I don't want to say they didn't care, but it just no longer became something that was as important. And
Wait, when did Insomniac say
now,
that? Like recently?
what?
When did Insomniac?
No,
Oh,
this
I
was
was like, what?
this was years ago
I was like, they
that
got
they
some
basically were
problems.
saying
Okay, okay.
like,
Continue
it's a
on.
really interesting article looking back on it now. Just because they were saying like a better frame rate doesn't help sell our games, like a prettier game or a higher resolution or whatever
Yeah.
does. And that makes, I think I understand what they're saying at the time in the context of when they said it. But now it really feels like people that didn't care about frame rate at all before now do. I mean, our very own Colin Moriarty was consistently for years was like, I don't see why people care about 60 FPS. I 30 FPS is fine. I have no problem with it.
It's not. If you
And
play
now with
shooters.
this new standardization where we're seeing games 60, I see posts all the time in our Facebook groups or whatever, people saying I can't go back to 30 FPS games because so many games are 60 now. I can't go back. How do you feel about this new standard, this new wave?
So I'm like 60 minimum right now, to the point where I'll just stop playing a game. No matter, there's this new game that came out called Chernobyl. It is made for me. If you explore Chernobyl, they've got some cool maps that they like photo scanned actual Chernobyl to make. That they're incredible. Story is actually very good in the game. It's just all around a great game that I've been having a ton of fun with. It has major issues with frame rate where it'll like hitch if you exit or enter a building. It'll just fluctuate all over the place. It's really hard to lock it at 60. I have a 3080 in my computer. There's no reason it should be having these problems. So I just delete it. I'm like, fuck this, I'm out. Ascent, that's a game really up my alley. A lot of gore, a lot of violence, some cool graphics. That game had major problems with frame rate as well. So like I'm at the point where if I can't get a locked just base minimum 60 frames per second without hitching, I'm just moving on. And I think that's a more recent change with me because I know when I moved out here like 5 years ago, I want to say, I had a PS4. I didn't have an Xbox at the time, and I had a PC with the 1070 in it. I would play shooters on the PC and basically everything else on my PS4 Pro. It was a Pro at the time. So I would play like Monster Hunter World. I remember playing that on the PS4 Pro. Really enjoyed that. Didn't care about 60 frames per second at all. I don't know if it ran at 60 though. It might have, but I didn't give a shit. And then suddenly I just started caring a lot more. And I think that's basically when I started working for Austin. I got to take home a computer with a 2080 in it. And
Yeah.
I was able to run literally everything at 60. And that's when I switched over. When I was like, well, consoles are sticking with 30. This PC I have can play all these games at 60. And I'll just play Sony exclusives on console. So I really hope that whatever they do with this PS5 Slim, PS5 Pro, I'll buy it as long as it keeps 60 as the baseline. I don't even really need 120. I play Destiny at 120 and I switch it back to 60 when I'm on just like my laptop. I literally can't tell the difference. Doom Eternal is one where I can tell the difference between 60 and 120, so it's like game to game, I guess. I don't care at this point about 120. 60 is just a good baseline. It feels very smooth. It feels like your reactions are timed well with what's going on in the game. And I think that's what's most important about it. So yeah, I like 60 frames per second. That's why I'm like, before they got the next gen patches on Destiny 2, one of my best friends like loves playing it on PS4 and PS5, and I was like,
Oh,
no, dude, like once they introduce crossplay, we
gross.
will play together, or you're gonna have to come to PC. Like I'm not messing around with this 30 FPS bullshit. Like it's just not happening.
Dude, it's funny. I mean, I played Destiny and Destiny 2 for years at 30 FPS. I'll never forget when, I mean, I knew 60 was great and I always wanted Destiny at 60, but I just dealt with it. I remember being at my first E3, which they were showing off Destiny 2 on PC. I didn't wait in line to play it, but I was watching someone play it and was playing at 60 and I was like, maybe it might have been 120. I was like, man, it looks so good. It like changed everything.
It's such a good port.
Well, dude, and I think that's kind of what's interesting about Destiny right now is that I think that the people are coming back to Destiny with the next gen version are like, whoa, this game is so much better now that I'm playing it at high frame rate. Like it feels so much more responsive. And that's always the thing that I've tried to hit home with on Sacred Symbols, and is that it's not just even about the the way it looks, right? Like, or the way uh it looks on your screen and the smoothness, but like a high frame rate means you have lower input latency, which
Right.
like when a game has lower input latency and responds better to what you do, it makes it feel more fun to play. Like responsiveness and games are like tied, at least to me. I don't know. I've always like, to me that's always made sense, but I've seen people that are like higher frame rate doesn't make a game more fun. What
It
about
does.
XYZ?
It really
And I'm
does
like,
though, because it's like,
not every game necessarily, but it's like if you're playing a shooter, then yeah,
yeah,
if it's more responsive, it's more fun.
I can't think of like
So,
any game that was worse for being locked at 60 outside of like Dark Souls 1 because it like destroyed the animations in that game.
right.
And Dark Souls 2, it made your weapons degrade twice as fast, which is kind of funny. But
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, it's like it's just weird
I
stuff
think that
like
was a
that.
PC thing though. No, dude, you're right. That was also in the PS4 version.
So fun.
So for the audience, the PS4 version of Dark Souls 2, they upped it to 60 FPS, which was awesome. But there was someone probably knows the actual technical aspect, but somehow the weapon degradation was tied to the frame rate. So your weapons wore out twice as fast, specifically on the PS4 version, and I don't know if they ever fixed it.
I don't know
Like I
either.
don't
I
know if
haven't
they
gone
knew
back
how
to
to fix
played
it.
it, so I don't know. But I just
Yeah, I
remember
mean,
distinctly that being really funny. But you just I can see the sluggishness at 30 frames per second. And once you hit 60, I think anything beyond that is just a little bit better. But when you go below 60, it's noticeably worse. And that's why it's the issue. And people will be like, "Oh, well, you don't need it for, I don't know, like Life is Strange or whatever." And it's like, "Yeah, but like to
Sure.
me that like Life is Strange is not the type of game I play. I like active gameplay where I'm like feel like I'm playing a game and not directing a movie, basically, is what I feel like I'm
Mm,
doing when I'm playing Life is Strange or Man of Medan or something like that. There's a core
right.
difference there to me where I don't know, Man of Medan could probably run at 24 frames a second and feel fine because you're literally playing a movie. But
Right.
if I'm playing Doom Eternal or something like that, like no, I need baseline 60. And they know that. That's why that engine is so immaculate. Like you can run Doom Eternal on pretty much anything and get insane frame rates. It's nuts. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's uh it's cool, I guess, just to, can kind of conclude this. I'm just happy to see more and more people care about frame rate, because if the audience cares and the consumer cares, we're going to just see more and more games continue to
Right.
release high frame rate versions of games. And actually, I think what's the best of all is just having the option, right? And that's kind of what we've seen Sony do so far with their first party and second party on PlayStation 5, is that just like, hey, here's an option. Here's Demon Souls. If you want to play at native 4K, great. If you want to play at high frame rate with an upscaled 4K, here it is. Which, that's the other thing that's exciting, is that the upscaling, I feel like, also is getting a lot better.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Demon Souls, I was flipping around between the native and the upscale, and I'm like, man, whatever they're doing is really good, because when I'm sitting a considerable distance from my TV, I can't tell the difference. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't experienced enough games at true 4K to be able to recognize the difference. And I went down this rabbit hole with Horizon Zero Dawn when they just did the update because I wanted to make sure I got all my info right when I was talking about it. So I was like, okay, 60 frames per second locked. Is that, are they targeting it? No, they locked at 60 frames per second. I was like, what does this game run at? And then I realized they upgrade. That was like one of the big 4K selling point games for the PS4 Pro, I remember.
Right.
So then I found out it uses checkerboard still. And I just went down this insane rabbit hole of the difference. And it's like, the way I understood it is that it's almost imperceivable the way checkerboard works versus native. And the only way you can tell is if you experience enough native content.
Right. Yeah, the checkerboarding, it depends. Like sometimes you can see specifically in like certain like grass patches or
Oh,
like
okay.
in leaves, like I'm trying to think how to describe it, like areas where there would be like lots of lines at once or something. You can see kind of where the checkerboarding is, but I don't know what they did with Demon Souls, but it's so incredibly good. I mean, you have to imagine that just these algorithms and whatever these systems that they do this upscaling
Right.
are always getting better. And I mean, just look at DLSS on NVIDIA, which is just insane. I highly recommend anyone checking out. Digital Foundry has a video about DLSS if you care
So
about
good.
upscaling,
I love that video.
where they take like a 540p video and it's control, and they use NVIDIA to upscale it. And it's like, it's not perfect, but it's really impressive that they're able to take like an image that's like the size of like a postage stamp and then blow it up, and it somehow looks good. Like, obviously that's not on PlayStation, but it gets me excited for the future of like how games, if they're spending less resources on uh image quality, like getting that high resolution, then like that opens up more resources for developers to do other stuff, which is exciting. So,
I think the SSD is important. I'm realizing that
oh
more as
yeah.
time goes on. Like just that man, that talk I was listening to, I was like, man, that's so smart with Dying Light 2. Now we don't know if it's going to be that way or how drastically the world's going to change, but they've been working on that tech for a long time. And I'm like a Dying Light evangelist, like Colin. I love that game. I got it when it came out because, like, I'm a big horror fan. I love zombie shit. I was like so into that idea. I was like ready to just beat people up over like defending it. I was like, I don't have to defend this game. It's very good. it speaks for itself. Dying Light 2, if it's achieving what they say it will, and I like have trust in them for the reasons I just talked about, I think it's gonna be a crazy game just because of that SSD. I'm like really excited
Yeah.
for that.
Well, that's the exciting thing that I bring up is that I'm excited for the future of the SSD when they aren't hampered by the PS4 in first party to actually do
Oh my
some
god,
stuff.
I
Like,
know.
it's like they sold us on this idea, but now they're, you
They're
know,
hamstringing themselves a little bit, I think.
right, right. And I
Horizon's
get
a
it. Like, we,
problem.
yeah. Well, Horizon, the thing is that I think that one started development on
Yeah.
PS4.
I mean, so did
So,
Dying Light though. So I don't is Dying Light just
oh,
next gen now? Sorry that you're gonna hear my
I don't know. Look that up real quick, though. Jamie, look that up.
that's
We don't have a Jamie. Usually I'm the Jamie. So I'm
okay,
just going to
so
reverse Uno this
it
on
is
you
still
and
gonna
make
be
you the
last
Jamie.
gen, which means like shit,
Oh,
that sucks because all those cool features that I was just talking about will probably not be as like cool as they could be
mhm,
if it wasn't having to support consoles that use regular spinning disk hard drives. So,
right.
but I think that's where I think they were onto something. I think that's where things are going to go. Like, I love this idea of telling video game stories within a video game. That like really stood out to me. Like cutscenes are cool. I think there's some really well directed ones, and they fit in certain games. Like, but you even saw with The Last of Us Part Two, they were moving more towards telling the game or telling the story within the actual game instead of cutting the cutscenes as much as the first game does. I like that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jimmy, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to discuss. I mean, we've kind of just spent this hour talking about hardware, which is cool. Dude, I love, I mean, you mentioned about you having all the fancy toys. I'm the exact same way. I'm always interested in, like, I have the OLED Switch pre-ordered.
I
I'm like,
know, dude.
why?
Ugh, I don't
Why
have
did
it
I do this?
pre-ordered, but
Do I really need it?
I,
You know?
like. I need to sit down my Switch. I need to play Hades. I need to like really dig into Hollow Knight. There's so many games just sitting there on it that I really need to play that I haven't. And I think that OLED Switch is gonna like kick that drive in me up a notch. And then, man, I'm
Mm,
so excited for the Steam Deck. I know you're skeptical. I'm not. I'm like all in on
mm.
it. I watched Linus's video and I was like, this is
He did a very good video.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
Linus killed it on that. And I got my pre-order in like the first 5 minutes and it's quarter 1. So I'm kind of salty about that.
that's what I have. Yeah,
That's like what we
same
were
as
talking
me.
about earlier, where it's like this problem affects me, so it's a problem. Like
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, damn it, dude. All right, Jimmy. Well, as we mentioned earlier, your main thing is, of course, PSReady,
yeah.
which you have the URL for that. You can go to
Yes.
youtube.com/PSReady.
Yeah. We got really
Yeah.
lucky. We got featured by YouTube like on the homepage of
Oh shit.
2 months into the channel, and that got us to the point that like pushed us over the edge where we got our like channel URL and a lot more algorithm love. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I have to say, of course, congratulations on the channel. It's funny. I remember us playing Call of Duty
Yeah.
together, and you were like, I have this new PlayStation project at work, and I'm really excited about it. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. That'll be cool to start something like that. And here you are now. Just let's see, 7 months ago was your first video, and you're already sitting at 45K subs and a ton of views. So congrats to
Thank
you and the
you.
team, man.
Thanks,
It's
man.
awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Like you're right. We were talking about it and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to get excited, but like I'm stoked." And it's gone so much better than I could have ever like imagined it would. Like I thought we'd be sitting at I don't know like 10,000 subs right now. You know, I was like, "Man, it's going to take forever. It's going to be a slow growth, but it's been a lot of fun." So, thanks for the kind words.
No problem, dude. And of course, I'm so excited. Again, as I mentioned, we will be meeting in person for the first
I
time
know I'm
at
so
an evening
stoked.
with Last Stand very soon. Like I said, when this goes live, it'll be that Saturday. It'll be here. So very
That- That's
exciting
crazy. Yes, we'll
stuff.
be hanging out, but then maybe people will be like listening to us while they're like standing next to us. That's going to be so weird.
Whoa,
Meta.
maybe. Pretty meta, dude. Crazy stuff. So make sure to go check out PSReady. Also follow Jimmy on Twitter. You have the @JimmyChampane also, right?
Yeah.
So you can find him easily there. Or if you go to my my Twitter profile, you can find the tweet where I retweeted the Kotaku article that just features Jimmy's arm very sensually, looking great. Honestly, your arm looks 10 out of 10 from that Kotaku article that just snipped that image.
Because both PS5s are clearly in the frame, but the focus is definitely on my arm. It's so weird.
It's a good dude. That's why I texted you earlier. I was like, your arm looks great.
Thanks.
No denying it. So thank you, Jimmy, for coming on Sacred Symbols Plus. It's been super fun talking hardware and getting a little more in depth than we normally do on Sacred Symbols. Hopefully we can do this again, of course.
Yeah,
at some
I'm so
time.
down. This is fun.
When hardware strikes, let's do it. So to the audience out there, thank you for listening. We super appreciate it. We thank you for being a patron. It means the world to us. We'll be back next week, of course, with 2 more episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus and the normal episode of Sacred Symbols. So until then, we'll see you later.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.